Hello, greetings. They say there's many roads that lead to Rome, but interestingly enough, obviously the closer you get to Rome, the fewer the roads there are that lead to the city center. It is the case regarding the absolute. I wanted to talk about light and ignorance. It actually does give you an insight into absolutely everything. It makes things abundantly clear. There's an issue in English that mind, brain, and consciousness are lumped together as one thing. Talk about ignorance, and of course, we all get upset at the ignorance or the stupidity. Stupidity actually is terrestrial or conventional. You know, someone could actually choose to embrace it. Obviously, a young child is ignorant fundamentally, not having a mind, put his hand on a hot stove, whatnot, and certainly metaphysically don't want to confuse stupidity with ignorance. Some people are in love with their own stupidity. I've said this many countless times. It's like one of the most fundamental things that is not taught in college or high school or junior high or anything for that matter, is that nobody is their beliefs. If people stop clinging to the things that they believe and considering that their beliefs are that which they truly are, this is the reason why there's so many conflicts, and there's never going to be peace in the world. If everybody lived to be 200 years old, and we never had to work, and we had, free food and all the luxuries of life, people would still, due to the nature of their ignorance, cleave after, what their neighbor has. Like, oh, my neighbor's wife is more beautiful, or my neighbor is more handsome or younger, and, it's never going to end. People think that money is going to solve things, or material possessions, or a long life, and that's not the case. Somebody with a smart, sharp brain knows that's never going to be the case. There's a difference between materialism and, you use the word spirituality. I actually don't like that word. The true word is metaphysics. Here's a phrase that I came up with in live stream. I love finding universal truisms. Some of the ones I've been using since forever is nothing true is popular, nothing popular is true. My other one is to insult a fool is the praise of wisdom. Here's one that's absolutely true. Why misery loves company. We've, of course, heard that since we were young, but ignorance demands it. It is true that wisdom is its own reward, and no wise person has ever sought another person to join him or her, such that that would actually help that person's wisdom. It's obviously good to help other people, and it's good for other people to be wise, obviously and logically so, but it's nothing any wise person ever does. I'm getting to the point here very quickly. I'm kind of doing an intro on ignorance and light and illumination and conventional ignorance versus transcendent ignorance. Transcendent ignorance, of course, is referring to the ontological self, i.e. avidya, and conventional ignorance, or what someone would call stupidity, is of course terrestrial. In other words, it has a beginning in time and an end in time, and it's part and parcel to the consubstantial being. What do I mean by consubstantial being? Consubstantial being, of course, is a living being. And, of course, life itself is the consubstantiality. In other words, the component of matter and spirit. It's like a cake is the consubstantiality of, what are the four ingredients of a cake? Butter, flour, Crisco. It depends on the type of cake you bake. In other words, more than one constituent component. So, remember when people used to knock on the door? They kind of don't do it anymore here. They travel in pairs and they knock on your door and they want you to, convert you to their belief system. And it is kind of a brilliant statement that while misery loves company, ignorance definitely demands it. The other variant on that, someone actually came up in live chat stream when I said this, is the only thing that loves company more than misery is ignorance. And this, of course, is a belief system, because obviously these things are not fulfilling because other people want you to join in, and you end up with the collective. And I'm actually getting to the metaphysics in the second part of this video, but the things that we encounter in daily life, if we work our way back, we can see the fundamental roots of all these things. Government, belief systems, come join. Remember when they had the little comic books, their little had the little cartoon drawings and their propaganda. They stick them if you didn't answer the door because you peeked through your window and you see who was knocking. It's like, oh, those people. They wear little badges and they travel around in pairs. And if they didn't answer the door, then they'd open up your screen door and they'd wedge the little propaganda booklet in there, trying to convert you. Same is true of governments, government minions. Society always will collapse right after you get 50+% of society to actually join in and feed the beast. There's always been a strive, and this is actually spiritual or metaphysical. Spiritual is kind of a nonsense word. The correct word should be metaphysical. That there has always been this move towards either collectivity or individuality. And ultimately both are true, and there is strength in numbers. Yeah, the Roman symbol of it's called the fasces, of the twigs, where the sticks that are bound together. You could break a twig or stick easy, or even a few. If you tie them together, then they basically become impenetrable, indestructible. And the same is true of ants. I mean, I don't know if you've ever accidentally stepped in a fire ant mound, but these little worthless little fire ants by themselves are nothing. Yeah, their little sting burns, but they send out chemical signals, and they kind of all work as a collective, kind of like the Borg. Like a Borg is not dangerous, right, which is a science fiction concept. The same with fire ants. Once one bites you, it releases a pheromone, I believe, and then they all collectively bite and sting you. Actually, the fire ants are stinging you. Man, it really hurts like hell. So there is strength in this, but this sort of collective ultimately never works. It works conventionally and objectively, as far as materialism goes, and the same is true of people that become government minions. Ignorance, of course, serves an icon. People never define ignorance. I tell you right now, with no lie, there's not a single YouTube video other than some that I've made in the past in defining ignorance. And people think ignorance is conventional or terrestrial, but that is actually stupidity, not metaphysically. Avidyo or agnosis, whether it be Sanskrit or Pali or the Greek. Agnosis, we're referring to an ontological ignorance, which is not terrestrial, not conventional, i.e. you have the existential persona non grata, i.e. Bob, Sue, and Larry. And some people, and intelligence can be lost in a heartbeat. You get into a car wreck, you can be one of the smartest people on earth. People ask me about what my IQ is. Never taken an IQ test. Intelligence isn't important. It is to a point. It's extremely helpful for this life, but you can lose it in a heartbeat. It doesn't transcend, like getting a car wreck and you scramble your brain and all that stuff you've been, facts and worthless information you've been stacking up your brain is gone in a heartbeat. There's a huge difference between episteme, empirical knowledge, and gnosis and wisdom. Wisdom is just a nonsense word, kind of, sort of, to refer to self-proximity. Self-proximity is self with a capital S, i.e. the subjective self, the transcendent self, which is pre-consubstantial to existential life. The persona non grata of Bob, Sue, Larry, the psychophysical, existential, corporeal form. And this, of course, is what is important. So I'm getting to the point of ignorance and transcendence here. But ignorance is, of course, serving an icon, an artifice, an art. It's no different than talisman worship. Is also, too, the reason why, and I'm not interested in discussing politics, okay? But people confuse capitalism with corporatism. People really, especially ignorant, there's that word, ignorant Americans confuse capitalism with corporatism. This is no different than people serving government minions and, trying to have this Borg collective where we're all trying to, and it is powerful, but ultimately it's weak because it serves something that's objective, that has a logos, that's existential. It's actually serving the extrinsic attribute of the logos, which is beautiful. But the beauty is not in what is beautiful, and the Pythagoreans and the Greeks define this, rather in the principle that actually define that beauty, which is not part of that thing. This is made out of alligator. This is the beautiful proportionality of the Pythagorean perfection of the 108, 36, 36 isosceles triangle. the beauty of what is here is not in the thing itself. It's like, well, this is beautiful, it has perfect proportionality, and it's also to the water molecule. Yeah, but the beauty in what is divine is not this thing itself, because this is just a piece of alligator hide. It's like, well, yeah, it is beautiful when it has that. Yeah, but this is easily destroyed. It has a beginning in time and an end in time. The principle is antecedent to what this thing is that we define as beautiful. But people worship due to ignorance and stupidity. We kind of had a joke in live stream I did that the most common element, like oxygen, hydrogen, would be the element stupidium. It's kind of like the universal thing that everybody's granted. You could either embrace it, which is bad, of course, or you want to get rid of it. Like the most noble thing is to have a bunch of stupidium, this imaginary element that is locked between two people's ears. And the most noble thing you could do is try to get rid of it as quickly as possible. It's kind of a funny thing we had going in live chat stream. I don't trust people without a sense of humor. We were discussing this in there. Only the collective, of course, can work and serve itself to the divine, the only collective that ever has worked. And there's a couple out in Utah. They've been working now for like 150 years, but all collectivity ultimately self-destroys because it is talisman worship, and it is worshiping not the divine, which is transcendent to the logos of anything. Rather, they're serving this symbol, kind of like people have, this love of either governments or corporates. Every corporate has their own logo, their own icon, and every government has their own flag. And people, and it's noble to be loyal to that and want to, help others, and people think they are helping others, but they're really not. It ultimately always self-destructs. Every true metaphysician and every Pythagorean and Platonist has said this for eons, yet nobody understands this. They never discuss it. I don't know a single video about it where anybody discusses it. The metaphysics of actually worshiping, and sacrificing yourself to these, to these icons, to these temporal icons. So all of this, of course, is served towards materialistic endeavors, which ultimately must fail, and then people get disillusioned, and you have strife and suffering and all the rest of it. Wisdom, of course, begets natural order, and of course natural order has no need of laws or morality. Laws only exist, let's be perfectly honest, I don't care if you agree or not, it's undeniable, laws only exist to keep fools and evil people in check. And it elicits, of course, fear. And this fear becomes self-empowering because everybody feeds this evil, because people are ignorant. And this ignorant, of course, is terrestrial and conventional, but they're not trying to remove the primordial, transcendent principle which gives birth to conventional stupidity, and that is agnosis, or avidya. People say, well, that just means ignorance. Yeah, but it's not ignorance of the embodied person, which is the consubstantiality of matter and spirit. Like Bob, Sue, Larry are stupid, and they will use the word ignorant, and that is true in English, but avidya, or agnosis, or avidya in Sanskrit, refers to objectification, the principle of self-fault and that which is antecedent to life, to existential being. People either fundamentally, and I'm getting to the heart of the matter here quickly, either cleave towards the light or the forms that the light illuminates. We find this beautiful. This is one example of among many. I've got, nautilus shells over there, countless things that are beautiful on this table. I got petrified wood laying over here, but to make the point that people attach themselves to these existential forms and they worship same. They actually make talismans out. And this is true of governments, people towards corporations, is that they believe in the subjective collective, which always must necessitatively fail. The only collective, once again, that can work is one that either serves itself regarding transcendence or is devoted towards serving the divine. Those are the only ones that can. Everything else is necessitatively doomed to failure. So people either cling to the light or the forms of the light, but the extrinsic nature of the light is illumination. Nobody ever sees light. I've said this many countless times. They only see illumination. The first two digits of the Fibonacci sequence are 1 and 1, i.e. the principle and the attribute. people are meant to cling towards the first one. The second one is just the existential attribute of the absolute. Avidya conventionally, of course, means ignorance. A, privative, prefixual plus vidya, means the inversion of light. A plus vidya, vidya being light or wisdom. What this word means, of course, is illumination, or conventionally it means ignorance, but metaphysical ignorance, which is antecedent to the existential persona non grata, who is a stupid or an intelligent individual. Stupidity and intelligence are just two flip sides of the same existential coin. Stupidity goes no further than death, and intelligence goes no further than death either. And intelligence can be lost in a heartbeat, say a car wreck, a brain tumor, so on and so forth. So people worry about intelligence. Intelligence is not important. It is very, very useful to be intelligent, but it is not what is ultimately important, because intelligence does not carry past life at all. It is completely impossible for it to. So people need to be worried about the vidya, or gnosis, and not about intelligence versus terrestrial stupidity. So this avidya, of course, means no different than illumination. In other words, the extrinsic attribute of the absolute, principle and attribute. This is the complete antithesis of nihilism, i.e. atheism, metaphysical materialism, and because atheism is not, according to the Platonists, profane because it denies a sentient creator being. It's profane because it denies a metaphysical substrate to phenomena. But this means illumination, the extrinsic attribute. The same is vijnana, the ancient Pali word which is extremely accurate, which translates literally as consciousness, literally means illumination. Is no different than saying avidya, or what is conventionally called ignorance. So the same word for consciousness also means ignorance, and also too means illumination. Vijnana, or consciousness, of course, is the living animation, or the living light. This existential attribute of the persona non grata is the realm of either stupidity or of intellect. Stupidity, and people need to stop looking. People look down on people for a million reasons, because they're not pretty. And of course, this is what Aristotle talked about, suffering the antinomies: young, old, fat, pretty, beautiful, ugly, so on and so forth. People worry about, well, this person's stupid, so I'm going to look down upon them. And that's not how anybody should approach things. Evil is not the doing of evil, because young and ignorant and stupid people will do evil things. It is the knowing between the two and actually cleaving towards evil. True evil is the love of evil, not doing things due to stupidity. It's like, this is bad, but I don't know, and it's a stupid individual one way or the other, and they've done something nefarious and evil because they're materialistic little minds, kind of like a craven animal, will steal something or do something horrible. It's like they just don't know any better. They're stupid people, and we look down upon these individuals. That is an evil act. That doesn't make a person evil. True evil, of course, is, we have a special place for these people that actually are in love with evil. But people need to realize and distinguish out stupidity and wisdom, and also to understand what it is that we teach and cleave to in our lives and what we look down upon others for. It's like, well, this person, might be completely illiterate, doesn't even know how to use a cell phone or a computer, but knows how to grow food, or might be a brilliant woodworker, or leather worker. Not that I'm referring to myself. Intelligence is always extremely self-destructive. The most evil people that have ever lived have always been highly intelligent. If you think of top 10 most evil people within the past 200 years, you will make note that every one of them was highly intelligent. People don't get, and this is never discussed in high school or college, and I find it completely confounding that it never is that intelligence and evil are not only not mutually exclusive, they're 9 times out of 10, they're, I say conjoined twins. I was going to say Siamese twins, but that's not appropriate anymore. You're supposed to say conjoined twins. They're joined at the hip. People that are extremely intelligent but have no wisdom always fall into a dark pit of evil, nefariousness. These are people that actually embrace true evil. They know the distinction, and they embrace it, and they love it. This is actually what true evil is. These people, you know, not only debase themselves in this life, but also too after, and then they become a special class of beings that we accurately and logically call demons. But just think of the top 10 people, most evil people, and these people are always highly intelligent. Unintelligent or conventionally stupid people, you know, while they can do evil things, are not themselves evildoers, nor are they demons. They could certainly progress to that, but these are the people not to be feared. They don't want to dominate your life. They're just, some people would call them bumpkins, or just, you know, an ignorant, people lead a simple life. They could be illiterate. Who cares? You know, some of the wisest people on earth that, you know, live in the dark forests, are illiterate, and they might not know anything. They might be wearing a loincloth and smell and are dirty, but you know, they have the wisdom of the ages and not interested in your thoughts about them one way or the other. I wish more people would consider understanding the nature of conventional stupidity and differentiate out that from ignorance, which is ontological and of course is antecedent to embodiment, and that's of course what people need to focus upon. Intelligence is wonderful and it's great for this world, but it only serves this world. That's the only place intelligence serves. It does not serve transcendence. It could be conducive as far as pointing to the way towards the methodology to engage in wisdom, which is just a fancy word for saying self-proximity. But they're not to be confused. But remember that wisdom is its own reward. Nobody that has any level of wisdom at all is interested in converting people or knocking on anybody's door. I know, you know, the people I'm talking about, Europeans may not, but that's actually kind of a common thing here in the southern United States. Not anymore so much, but I mean, people are going around trying to, you know, get you to fall into their belief system and to serve this talismanic artifice, no different than government or corporate worship, you know, where everybody's, you know, giving praise to a talisman or a logo or an icon, and you're trying to have a group collective, because this is some sort of, and it is, not some sort of, it is a mutually building, I shouldn't say mass psychosis, but it kind of is that. And wisdom never takes that path. It never has. And it's kind of brilliant that nobody ever makes these acknowledgments, and to the other people that we see in life, they're trying to, you know, suck you into their beliefs, or, you know, their, you know, the things that they believe in. It's like, why would they do that? You know, they obviously have no wisdom, but they become more empowered if they can drag you into it. There is this power, and it's not a good power. It's exactly like government too, by the way. When the more people they can get to come into the collective, they do become stronger, but they don't become stronger of themselves. They become stronger that feeds a collective and an icon, and this ultimately, and always does, morphs into evil. So tell me what you think. I read every comment. I hope this video wasn't too abstruse. Sometimes I make some very abstruse videos. I wouldn't call them fringe, but they might be too deep, maybe, too far down the rabbit hole. I don't know if this is one. I can't judge that for myself. That's up to you. Thanks so much for watching. Have a lovely week.